Welcome to Between Two Pastries, a not-so-typical nutrition podcast. Nicole and Annie are licensed and registered dietitians. Join them as they discuss hot nutrition topics, challenge popular beliefs, and have a blast doing it. Here are your hosts, Nicole and Annie.
Welcome to Between Two Pastries. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
So today we're kind of lumping a whole ton of topics into one because they all kind of coincide with each other. So we kind of wanted to talk about most things endocrine related. So thyroid issues. I guess we could even kind of throw in like potential for like adrenal issues. Really comes down to stress in general, menopause, and just kind of what also falls under that umbrella typically because of this stuff is body dissatisfaction and the need to change and control. So wow.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you say the
That's
number one
right there? Yeah.
The number one client that you hear from is like hitting that hormonal change period in their life, whether it's a man or a woman. I feel like that's usually when I hear like, I just gained weight and I'm this old now. And, something hormonally changed for them. Man or woman, it doesn't matter. It's not just menopause. Men have their own hormone changes that they undergo.
Oh, of course. I mean, everybody goes through. We all have the same hormones, and what makes us different is that men have testosterone and women have estrogen, although we have a little bit of testosterone and men have a little bit of estrogen. The issue that comes into play, though, is we both end up having sometimes some imbalances with both during different times of our lives. So we can all experience some different things around that.
Let's start with the thyroid. The most common one we hear about is hypothyroidism.
Thyroid conditions in general, I mean, they're not really that uncommon, and sometimes they're hereditary if it falls in your family. It's like something you definitely want to keep an eye on and have checked on a pretty regular basis. Sometimes they can happen because of something that's called subclinical. So what happens is that you can have some other things going on that's creating the thyroid to be acting in a certain way. So you can have a subclinical form of hyperthyroid or hypothyroid. So there's different things that kind of coincide.
Nicole, let's take a step back for everyone who doesn't love science as much as us. Tell me what the thyroid does and where it is and all the thyroid info that might be important.
So thyroid is kind of like the determining element of kind of how we stay warm if we're cold, metabolically, how quickly we're going to metabolize certain things or how slow we're going to metabolize certain things. So it's kind of like the temperature gauge. I like to say, Either it goes
it's a regulator
down or it keeps nice and balanced and just kind of self-regulates.
Yep. It's your thermostat.
Yeah. But, when it's a little off, though, if it ramps us up a little bit too much, then we have issues with sleep. Sometimes when our adrenal system is involved and we have imbalances there, it can definitely disrupt our sleep. And a lot of times when we are in menopause, we have all of the things happening at the same time. So when we have a little adrenal upset with a thyroid upset with, hormone upset in general because of, certain things are higher than they should be.
So we've talked about before how carbohydrate is directly related to the thyroid. If someone through their teens or 20s and 30s, maybe part of their 40s, was not eating enough carbohydrate, can that lead to thyroid issues as they hit their 40s and 50s, such that they could then be diagnosed with hypothyroidism if, in fact, they were under consuming carbohydrate?
Sure. So in other words, chronic dieting.
Correct.
Yeah. I think whenever you have a long-term imbalance anywhere, it can lead to just about anything. I mean, I don't think that there's solid literature saying this is a cause, again, like we've talked about in the past, like we can't always, because a lot of people can be chronic dieters and never have anything awful happen to them, except maybe get osteoporosis at some point. And even then, that's a crapshoot. It's like somebody who decides they're going to smoke their whole life, but never ends up with any type of lung disease.
Right. But majority of people will end up with lung disease.
That's right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you always get some people, that's the thing. Like we can't always say that this will always lead to X, but what we can say is that whenever we have imbalances, the body has to somehow compensate. And so, it could lead to certain things. And the reason why I bring that up in particular is because, I mean, obviously thyroid, a main function of thyroid, or a main need of thyroid, is iodine. And so, for anybody who doesn't have iodine in their diet for any reason, like a lot of times vegetarian vegans have a difficult time getting in enough iodine. If you have to be on a very low sodium diet, and sodium can be a higher place of iodine intake, sometimes that can be of concern too. But one thing that I think about is not having enough folate. And so
bingo.
Yeah. So folate affects the heart on a massive level too. And if we're already dropping, say, estrogen when we're under, consuming, or testosterone, if we're under consuming and putting a lot of stress on our body. So either one of those hormones then will affect our heart. And if you're not taking in enough carbohydrate, chances are you're actually not getting a lot of folate. Just because that's another, B vitamin. And again, unless you're supplementing with it, and even then, as we talked about in the past, supplementing isn't always a shoo-in, you know what I mean? That your body's going to manufacture and absorb it and then function with it as optimally as if you got it from food. So anyway, the issue with that is that, when those other levels start to come down, if we have enough folate, we have some protection there. If we don't, then we don't. So again, that can end up disrupting then different systems which can in turn disrupt thyroid. You see what I'm saying? It's like one always leads to another that affects the other, that blah, 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 and sometimes it's just hereditary, but
100%. I want to share a story because I'm hopeful that majority of the dudes out there aren't turning this off thinking that this is all women issues and stuff like that. Because I was working with a patient. He admitted to me, he was in a partial program, and he was in his 20s, and he had a eating disorder, anorexia. I mean, he had gone through residential, and so he had restored a bit of weight. And so we were at the point of maintaining his current weight. We had to have that conversation because I was doing his intake, and I'm asking him, questions about, that we would ask, right, with an eating disorder patient. And one of the things I always ask male patients is, are you thinking about sex? Are you wanting to, how are you feeling? Like, do you like girls right now?
Sure.
Or are you attracted to someone, or, having those feelings start to come back. And sometimes they look at me like, who the hell is this woman? And because they're kind of taken aback, but I always want to make sure that they say, yeah, no, I really like girls or boys or whatever. Like I like people, and I'm attracted to so-and-so or whatever.
Sure.
And this person in particular said, and it was really sad because he's like, no, I really have no desire whatsoever. And I'm like, dude, you're like 20. Like, come on, really?
Yeah.
Right. Like, come on. And I said to him, well, that means that your testosterone is still fairly low. Like, I still think, we need to, I know you're in your target weight, but we do need to probably then still restore some weight a little bit more and keep pushing, this balance and making sure you're getting, the kind of large snacks that he was assigned at that time. And, et cetera, et cetera. I won't get into more details, but he just looked at me and he's like, I understand. And, I understand why I need and would want my testosterone to be back to normal, but I'm still not sure that outweighs being thin.
Oh, wow.
But how many people in the general public feel that way?
Right. And on top of that, it's like, we have that particular hormone, not just for that, but for functioning of so many other things. And so when we're chronically having this too low of a body fat, our body has to constantly compensate for it. And that's where these glands either get too they go into overdrive and overstimulated, and then they start running out of stuff because the body can't regenerate at a fast enough rate, because there's also not enough of any of these other hormones functioning appropriately to help regenerate some of this stuff.
Right.
And then on top of that, like without that hormone too, for a guy, that too is going to lead to weak bones, and a weaker heart. So we need to be connecting all of these other things that these hormones have very specific roles. And again, we work as a unit. We don't work as a isolated piece.
Right. People compartmentalize.
Yes. We can't remove something and go, you know what? I don't really need that because I just don't think I really need it. Yeah, you do.
You do. Yeah, there's so much more than just our brain, heart, and organs. Like there is the whole endocrine system. And he, again, he understood the ramifications of, not having a sex drive and stuff like that. And it was very interesting, but I think it leads to the point that you were raising earlier when we were talking, is that's how far people are into diet culture, in the sense of it's more important to look a certain way than to actually obtain health. Even if that means I'm in a different body. And now, leading to that point of body and looks is way more important, than making sure my hormones are okay now, which lead to awesome health in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Right.
Correct.
It's mind blowing to me how, and I get, again, a diagnosed person with an eating disorder, but I feel like that urge and desire to look a certain way and appear like I eat a certain way and restrict certain food groups is even more prevalent in the general public with people who do not have an eating disorder diagnosis. It is raging and awful.
It is awful.
And that's what's so alarming, is just how dissatisfied people are when they look in the mirror. And what I see, for example, of this patient, he was a, 20-something-year-old, strong, built, good-looking kid. He looked like he didn't have any flaws about him in my eyes. And that's something I do.
He doesn't have any flaws. This is what's really important. Everybody needs to hear this. No one actually has flaws. We're human beings, and our bodies do things.
They change.
They're flawless, though. They're flawless as a body.
Right.
We're only flawed when we give our power away to something outside of us who determines what is considered flawless. I think that word is really strong. And if you're saying that if you're kind of even mentioning that, like that person may have been feeling flawed, or, you even saying, I just feel like people are thinking that too. So I just wanted to make that point. So I go for it. Keep going.
And everyone should rewind the podcast a whole minute and listen to that as often as you need to until you get it and you can repeat it.
Yeah.
That's how important what Nicole said really is. And I want to raise the point, though, because I agree with you. There isn't a human body in the entire world that is flawed on any level. What I want to share with you is I was ridiculed growing up for, by people would say my fingers are really short, or, your fingers are really fat, or your toes are really small.
You were too cute, Annie.
Seriously,
you were
I was too cute.
So
I was cute as a button.
So you were ridiculed.
And I wouldn't wear sandals to school because I was so nervous about but this is how it starts.
I'm sorry.
What's going on in people's worlds that they feel like my stomach doesn't look the right way.
Right.
I'm 45. I'm starting menopause. and I've gained 10 pounds. Instead of saying, ooh, boy, this process, something's going on inside my body. Wow, I can't believe my body's taking care of myself, and look at all the amazing things it's doing to keep me functioning.
Right.
Instead, it's, ew, I'm so gross. I've gained weight. And there's 10 pounds. And now in the mirror, and I see this, and my stomach looks gross. And oh, I just had babies, and now my stomach looks this way. And oh my God, my thighs are rubbing, and whatever. My toes look this way. Whatever it is. Again, we've discussed this. It's a learned behavior at some point from magazines, parents, school, bullying, whatever, diet culture. And that's what people don't want to, they don't want to point the finger for some reason at diet culture, because for some reason, even in diet culture, someone's diagnosed with with hypothyroidism, or they start menopause, and all of a sudden it's, do this, do this, do this, you'll lose weight, or this will happen, I'll fix your thyroid. Let me tell you, there is not one single diet that is prescribed to any human being on the face of the planet with a thyroid problem.
Right.
There is no medical diet, no diet in the world can fix or help your thyroid. Period.
So
throw that out the door.
Point being to what Point being to what you just said is, the minute we see something we don't like, or we see a change in our body, we immediately think something needs to be fixed, something needs to be changed, and something needs to be controlled. Instead of just accepting that this is what's happening at the moment, and there's no reason to freak out.